I'm here today with horror author Ben Farthing. His supernatural horror delves into liminal spaces, strange mysteries, and horrifying journeys, which is definitely on display in his extremely popular I Found Horror series. Welcome, Ben.
Hi, thank you.
So, I'm going to start off with a very easy question. How did you first get into writing, and why did you pick horror of all the possible genres?
I remember writing stories in like first grade, and our teacher, the county, I guess, or maybe just the school, or maybe just the teacher had this push to like have us write stories and not worry about anything. And so she had this red stamp that said draft, and just all over the walls were our stories that we wrote that with terrible spelling and grammar and nothing made any sense, but it said draft, so it was okay. And that's the first stories I remember writing. A lot of them were like Batman fan fiction. But yeah, that's when I started writing, and then I've just never stopped.
And what about horror? How did you go from Batman fan fiction to scary stuff?
Oh, I don't remember. I mean, every kid's into scary stuff, right? I know I was into Goosebumps.
Hmm.
Um, I think my mom was always into horror a little bit, enough that she would pick out like the creepy kids books. So when I was a kid, I was reading the like my mom says there's no such thing as goblins, ghouls, whatever, and um, different things like that. And they always attracted me. So then when I found Goosebumps, I got obsessed with that, and then I went straight from Goosebumps to Stephen King, and just never really stopped.
Natural pipeline. Same thing
Yeah,
happened to me. I get it.
yeah.
Well, what is your writing process like? How do you get started, and do you have any writing rituals?
You mean process like a session of writing versus tackling a book, or
Both,
okay,
or either.
a session of writing, man. So I have pretty severe ADHD, and I'm constantly looking for new ways to like stay focused and not hate the act of sitting down for a long time. Um, so like my last book or 31st Trick or Treater, I wrote that in my local library, sometimes with a notebook and pen, sometimes with my laptop. Um, I go and I'd sit there. They have these big old windows in front of the parking lot. I'd sit upstairs and in the sunlight and write. Um, and then let's see, one of my books I've dictated, or two of my books I've dictated, um, and then the one right now I bought a free write, so just like a word processor, does nothing else. And I have been sitting just in my living room while my preschool age kid runs around, and I've been writing the new book like that. So, but I don't have like a okay, now I'm going to sit down and pray to the muses like Stephen Pressfield, or now I'm going to sit down and drink a cup of coffee or anything. I'm just something. Just it doesn't matter what it is. Just start writing and then keep writing as long as I can, and then take a break and read, and then do it again. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, that sounds good. I mean, you do what you can when you can.
yeah,
And so you're a full-time horror author.
I am. Yeah.
What is a day in the life like for you?
Um, so got young kids in school and preschool, and not yet in preschool. So mornings are hectic. Um, and then once one or two of them are off to school, depending on the day, then right now, then I sit down at the kitchen table or on the couch or in an easy chair next to the fireplace and start writing. I'm working on a first draft right now. Once I'm working on a second draft, I'll want like I want my computer and need more quiet, which is weird, right? I can compose with noise. I need quiet to edit. Um,
I need quiet for both, so it's good that
yeah.
you can work in any environment.
um, so I've got right now. I'm sitting in an outdoor office I built in my backyard. So I'll
Cool.
come out here for a second draft or go to the library. Um, and then, so I've always been indie, one sec, indie, so I can charge my own marketing. But I've often spent afternoons messing around with Facebook ads or trying to make TikTok videos. Right now, I signed a deal for a couple books with Wicked House. And I'm trying to do all three this coming year. Um, I mean, my only marketing responsibility there will be, social media stuff. So right now, I'm just writing like all the time. It's really nice.
Do you write for the entire day, or at least until your kids come home from school?
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. What I try to do. um,
That's awesome.
yeah. So it's like, so I'm back from taking my kids to school, walking the dog, maybe 9 o'clock. and then we pick up my son at 2:30. Um, and so yeah, I will try to work in between then. Usually, I'll take like a long break, so I'm getting maybe like 4 hours of solid writing in, and then um, an hour or two of social media stuff on a
Mhm.
good day. Um,
That sounds like a good schedule to me.
I'm really enjoying it. Yeah,
For sure. Well, let's talk about your most recent release, which is the 31st Trick or Treater, which broke into the top 5 in the entire Kindle store,
yeah,
which is
that was great.
amazing. So, can you talk about that book and what you think contributed to its awesome success?
Um, I think the structure of the book, like the gimmick of the book, not an somebody told me not to call it a gimmick, like I was insulting myself. Like it's a gimmick. It's not a bad thing. Um, the gimmick of the book that you read a chapter each day and you're on the same day as the characters um, means that if you want to read the book, you need to read it right now. Um, and so it matches with the algorithm, which
Mhm.
says people are buying a lot right now and reading a lot on KU Kindle Unlimited right now. Then it jumps up the charts. So how it happened. And then, I mean, on top of that, it was also, I spent some time figuring out like, well, what's the actual premise of this book? Because a Halloween Advent book isn't a premise. And so coming up with 30 kids disappeared last year, trick or treating from this one neighborhood, and this year they start coming back one by one, but there's only 30 of them, right? So what's going to happen on the 31st? Um, so that I think people got hooked by oh, this is a cool idea. And then when they see what the premise is, then they're like, oh, okay, yes, this is cool. This has mystery. This is what I want. And then um, the premise is not a story. So once the story starts, once they start reading and get attached to the characters and their struggles, their grief, what's going on, even before like everything really starts happening in the book, then then it's off to the races.
Yeah. And I know you also had a Facebook group where people could read along together. So it's a very community focused experience.
Yeah, yeah, that was really fun. I didn't write much in October. I mostly just like talked to people on Facebook about my book, about excuse me, about that day's chapter. Um, and yeah, there was like 6,000 people in there, or something like that. It was wild.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and there's discussion each day about every chapter, which is fun, and then also you know like nail biting for an author to be like. And then also, I had a few mistakes in that book of like continuity stuff I messed up here and there, and they noticed it, so it was kind of anxiety inducing to be like, oh no, all right, let's start reading the comments today. Did I miss it? Did I mess up anything else?
I know
But
that's not a fun feeling when somebody messages you and is like, I found a typo on page 30. And I'm like, well, then it's going to stay there.
overall, yeah,
Well, how would you categorize your type of horror?
I write supernatural horror. That's like the easiest thing to say.
Mhm.
And then I like writing weird mysteries that
Mm.
feel like a horror Doctor Who episode. Or
Oh.
we're not going to get like a Scooby Doo answer of it was the butler all along, like Riley Sager likes to do. But it'll be like I said, Doctor Who, where some creepy, weird mystery starts the book, like a circus tent in the woods behind my house, or puppet looking at me from through the wall, or 30 kids who disappeared and now reappearing. And then throughout the book, we're going to investigate or try to survive, or both, this strange thing. And by the end of the book, we'll have more of an understanding of what it is, and probably a lot more questions uh, surrounding it as well. So I
Mhm.
like that cosmic horror flavor. Um,
Definitely. And I really love the premise of the I Found Horror series. I've read the Circus Tent one, and I really want to read the Abandoned Mall one because I find abandoned places so cool. So, are you still writing the I Found Horror series, or have you kind of put a close on that one?
no, no, it's not closed by any means. I did. My plan was to work on those all this year, and then I got the offer from Athon to write, not, or from Wicked House to write some other books. So I'd still like to work in one this year, and maybe that's what it'll be um, for a while. Is doing like one a year because they're not too long. I can write one in a month, maybe 2 months. Um,
That's a fast turnaround.
yeah, I mean it depends. So because they're short, it's going to vary wildly, right? So like if I can get to a first draft and it's like this is almost done, then I can write a book in a month. But if I get to a first draft and I'm like, actually,
Mhm.
I should change everything about it, which happens half the time,
Mhm.
then it's going to be twice as long. Um, so it could, yeah. But if I write, 1,000 words a day, just kind of my minimum goal,
Mm. Yeah,
then
for
I can
sure.
do that. But yeah, no, I have lots of ideas. I have two that I've written a few thousand words of. Um,
You write 2 books simultaneously?
Not really. I try to, and then I usually just get one gets abandoned.
Mm.
Is what happens. Um, and then ideally I come back to it, but
Mhm.
I would like to write two books simultaneously. I'm still going to keep trying. One of these days I will.
I feel like I would get so mixed up being in so many heads at the same time.
Yeah. Well, with these I found horror books, they're one point of view. Um,
Mhm.
they're pretty simple because they're not very long. Um, so I'd hopefully not get too mixed up. But
Mm. Well, I'm gonna ask you a broader question. So, why do you think horror in general just matters? Why are we drawn to it, and kind of what is its purpose? Why do we care so much to read horror?
so my answer for this is more specifically for supernatural horror of all flavors and genres. But I think it is seeking out like a sense of wonder, like the phenomenology of like the experience of it, right? Of just feeling wonder. Like the first time you read a fantasy book as a kid, elves and dwarves and goblins instill wonder in you because you haven't seen them before. You're like, what is this?
Mm.
Um, and it's a little bit scary, even those things as a kid. And part of that I think is it's the unknown. So
Mhm.
we have a reaction to the unknown, which is fear, and we react to fear through what fight, flight, or freeze. And my theory is that sitting and reading a book or watching a movie, I guess, you're forcing yourself to freeze. And so you're in this fear response as you sit there and experience this horror for the first time. And so it just sort of like perpetuates into this really cool feeling. And then I think is like important to living, like is to still feel wonder. Excuse me. And so, but with fantasy, a lot of fantasy, adult fantasy, ends up being no longer about instilling wonder, but about familiarity and comfort, where you read about dwarves and goblins again. Um, excuse me. And so you don't end up with those feelings of wonder, but supernatural horror is always that. Well, that's not
Mm.
true. Um, I mean, you sort of, well, you know what? Yeah, it is. So, like, even if you have the familiar tropes of like a haunted house and a ghost, it's still going to be, all right, well, what's this ghost doing? Or why is this ghost here? And then, or the stuff that I usually write, which is weirder than that, I think lets the reader enjoy that sense of wonder. Um, yeah, that's my answer.
I think that's a really good answer and one that I haven't heard before. So I like that a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And what do you wish we
My
saw
masterpiece.
more of in the horror book world?
I would like to see more kind of analog horror, more stuff like internet horror. Um,
Interesting.
so we've seen it kind of break from the internet into the movie theater a little bit with like Skinamarink and I swear there was something else recently, but I'm drawing a blank. But you have this whole genre of internet horror. A lot of it is about finding lost media or like hidden media, and a lot of it deals with strange spaces, like intruding on the everyday. Like the whole idea of the back rooms, which all of a sudden you're in hallways that just go on forever, which they're just hallways, but then it's terrifying because it goes on forever, and it shouldn't be
Mm.
here. I shouldn't be here. So I'd like to see more of that. We got a little bit of that with like Craig DeLuise episode 13,
Mhm.
which was like a found footage book. And I'm forgetting the editor's names. Actually, do I have it? There's two editors who did found an anthology of found footage horror stories, and there's
Mhm.
2 volumes of it. And a lot of those deal with like liminal spaces and weird stuff. And they're all like the format of them is found footage, like text messages or emails or descriptions of
Cool.
YouTube videos. Um, And so I'd like to see more of that. Like I think when you see these sort of like internet horror things pop up and gain these communities, like like SCP, which is all just like weird supernatural entities being studied, and it's like a wiki of people just adding their own things. Or you have other creepy pastas or section places like Reddit No Sleep or How It Used to
Mhm.
Be, which was like people just being like, "Hey, let me tell you this weird thing that happened to me," and they end up a lot of them end up being you know people peeking at you from around your family peeking at you from around a wall, and then when you come back, they're like, "I wasn't doing that." So there's all these weird like supernatural mysteries, like Doctor Who episodes, like I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Um, so I think when you have these sort of communities pop up, it's like an underserved market, or I mean, not even in a financial way, but just like a people want these type of stories, and so they're putting them out there, and so I would like to see more of that weird, feels real, feels personal, feels gritty, like DIY um, in the horror world, in the horror lit world.
Awesome. Me too. I hadn't really thought about that, but it sounds really good. Well, I'm going to ask you a very difficult question.
Okay,
What is your favorite horror book and why?
It by Stephen King,
Oh, okay. Maybe that wasn't so hard for you.
or yeah, great, no blue. Um, I so it it's like the ultimate supernatural mystery. How do we understand and defeat this thing? Um, and then it deals so well with like just a theme of
Mhm,
fear of little kids that have fear, and then what fear does to adults as they become like abusive and neglectful, or what does fear do to communities with all the like asides about burning down the nightclub because it was
mhm.
because it was black owned, um, and things like that. And so you have all these pieces that are like, hey, think about this. Hey, think about this. Hey, think about this. But then the central thread is this story of these kids confronting something they don't understand, confronting fear. Um, and nobody writes horror and character like Stephen King.
It's true.
So I would say, yeah, I think that's my favorite. I've always said that, but now I also sometimes say that Something Wicked This Way Comes is my favorite.
Oh, okay. I
That's
mean, I love both of those books. They're both great. It's hard to pick.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think I would pick it, but I love Something Wicked This Way Comes. So,
Well, it is such an expansive story. I mean,
yeah,
there is so much in there. I've read it twice, and every time I'm finding new things, and it still scares me. I mean,
yeah.
I remember watching the original movie when I was like 5 and loving it, and I've seen the remake too. Do you have a preference for which movie? Like, who's the better Pennywise?
Oh, wait, those are two different questions. I think the more recent It Chapter One is the better movie as a whole. Um, I mean, Skarsgård does fantastic,
He does.
but like, I think Skarsgård is. I think I like the vindictive feel more than the goofy
Mm.
feel. Although, man, it's yeah, that's hard
Tim
to
Curry is
say.
terrifying as
Tim Curry,
Pennywise.
no, he's fantastic. Yeah, you know what? No, I think I could. Yeah, yeah. Tim Curry's the better It, but by a hair.
It's hard to pick.
But I don't have like the nostalgia glasses for the original It movie. I didn't see it till I was a teenager.
Oh, it's all nostalgia for me. We had it came on 2 VHS tapes, because it was so long. I loved
Yeah,
it
it's like a
so
TV
much.
movie first, right? Um, I don't. I mean, I think it's good. I don't think it's great. There's a lot of silly stuff in it that doesn't. I don't think comes across super effective.
Fair.
But Tim Curry is not one of those. Tim Curry is fantastic.
Mhm. Gave me nightmares, but it was worth it.
Oh yeah.
Well, you've referenced this a little bit, but I wanna get more into it. So, speaking about, like, what's next on the horizon for you, you mentioned that you've signed I think it's a 3-book deal with Wicked House.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that, however much you can say, and kind of how that came about?
Um, well, if it's interesting to people, so Wicked House was acquired by Athon. Athon
Mhm,
is one of those very successful smaller presses for they did a lot of fantasy, sci-fi, lit RPG. Um, my understanding is they're really good at marketing, really good at sales. So their
mhm,
books reach a lot of people, and they're able to hire great editors and great everybody to put out really good books. And then they wanted to move into horror, and so they bought Wicked House from Patrick Ruman, and Patrick was doing a great job of curating really quality books.
mhm.
Some of my favorite. books of this year were from Wicked House, like Andrew Nyberg's Extinction Dream, which is fantastic. Uh, but so they, yeah, so Patrick sold to them. So now Wicked House is like that great vision that Patrick started with these really quality, well put together horror books. Um, and now it'll have Athon's like marketing genius behind it. And so when they announced it, they wanted to bring in some writers that horror readers are familiar with, and so I was lucky enough to be one of them. And yeah, they contacted me. Andrew Nyberg is now co-editor in chief. So he reached out to me, and then I talked to him and talked to the main guy at Athon, pitched him a series of, or at least starting with a 3-book series of standalone horror books. So kind of like my I Found series, where each one is its own thing, but this one is like haunted houses, but
Mm,
with the way. Um, but I'm always going to do something strange with the trope. So, so the first one, working title is The Glitched House.
mm.
The premise is that in universe, there's this real haunted house, this real like murder house that has its own like mythology, like internet mythology around it. And there's a video game, horror video game based in the house. These 4 streamers who got popular playing this video game are invited to spend the night in the house streaming the game that's based in the house. And so that's the setup. And then, so I get to play
Cool.
with this weird house while these people are playing this video game based on the house, and then playing with themes of like, um, of like why we do what we do. Like, anyways, I guess that's kind of hard to get into before you read the book, but
I mean, it sounds good. I mean, it sounds kind of like that internet horror that you wanna see more of, right?
yeah, yeah, be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly. Well, that sounds super awesome. And so what else are you working on right now?
Um, that is the main thing.
Mm,
Like I said, I have 2 different I Found books that I have started. I have a different novella that I guess I'm probably not talking about yet until we get. I'm trying to get a 3-author collection going, and
mm.
I've got one person on board, and there's somebody else we're trying to get a yes out of. But it'll be political, bizarro, body horror,
Cool. Okay.
and then um, we'll see if we can write this in time. But my wife and I are fooling around with a like Valentine's Day chapter a day up to just 14 chapter horror book that will be like a legit scary ghost story, and then at the same time mess around with all these like romance tropes.
That sounds really awesome.
So we're gonna try to finish that in time for this year. If not, it won't be
Yeah.
till next year. But
Cool. Okay, so you're pretty busy, safe to say.
yeah, well, it's really just the 2 things, right? That I'm actively working on, and then once I have time for the other ones, or once I get a yes from that one writer, then we'll add more things.
Cool. Well, what advice do you have for aspiring authors who want to have a career like yours?
Um, so persistence, but persistence in the way of like continual, not just improvement, but like trying new things. So like the 10,000-hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about, where 10,000 hours on something makes you an expert. The guys who did the actual study wrote their own book and said, no, no, it's 10,000 hours of focused practice, is what they called it, of like not just 10,000 hours of doing it, but 10,000 hours of trying to correct what you're not good at,
Hmm,
trying to get better and better. So that, in terms of like writing quality, and then turn it into a career. Um, it's just it's the persistence. It's the persistence of trying this and then trying that and then trying this and then trying that, and then eventually something clicks. I think every writer will say, like every writer's gone full time, or you know successful in one way or the other, will say that they got there through some unique way. They're like, well, I don't want to like tell you to do it this way because that's probably unique to my situation, but I think every way is going to be unique to your situation, and so it's just trying and trying and trying until you get lucky.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you and keep up with you and your work?
So I'm most active on Facebook, just author Ben Farthing. Also on Instagram and TikTok, which is my name. And then my website is thedreadfarthing.com. And there's a free book. There's a link for a free book on the homepage there. Um, Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. This was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.